Your quick stop for movie recaps. Get all the highlights and mind-blowing twists in just minutes. The movie begins with a bus whose brakes fail. The passengers get scared and start screaming. A policeman named Brian notices them. He sees a group of children crossing the street with their dog. Before the bus hits them, he runs to save them. The dog flies up and he saves the children at the last moment. He throws a hook at the bus and stops it. Then he catches the dog before it falls to the ground. People are amazed by him. He goes to a doctor named Brenda who tells him she admires him, but it turns out all of this was a dream Brian was having. Benny, his niece who lives with him, comes to him and reminds him about tomorrow's parents' meeting at school. He responds that he doesn't want to go and embarrass her in front of her classmates because he works as a security guard in a lab. He tells her that his dream in life is to become a police officer. We then go to a lab for advanced robots and devices. We see Dr. Brenda, who appeared in the dream, installing a chip in a device. She tells her father that this chip will ensure the project's success. They are working on creating a robotic leg, and she and her father successfully activate it, making her happy. Meanwhile, Brian is at work in the lab. He sees Dr. Brenda leaving on the surveillance cameras. It's clear that he admires her a lot, so he quickly goes to talk to her. At the same time, a man named Solix is watching her with a camera from his car. We see Brian approach Brenda and start talking to her, but she seems distracted. He keeps talking about random topics just to spend more time with her. She suddenly remembers she forgot her keys in the lab and goes back to get them. Meanwhile, Solix orders his assistant Sykes to move the car and break into the lab. However, his cat plays with the remote control and the car crashes into the lab. Small robots come out of the car, enter the lab, and steal the robotic leg and its control helmet. Before leaving, they kill Brenda's father, Artemis. Brian realizes there's a security breach and quickly enters the lab. He finds Brenda crying over her father. He tells her he won't rest until he catches the killer. He quickly gets into his car and drives as fast as he can to catch Solix and arrest him. A bowling ball is next to him and he moves it aside to drive properly. Sykes spills oil on the ground, causing Brian to lose control of his car, which flips over. Solix climbs out of his car's roof and throws a hook at Brian's car, which explodes. However, the bowling ball flies out and hits Solix's hand, injuring it. The next morning, Brenda learns what happened to Brian and visits him in the hospital. She finds him completely bandaged, looking like a mummy. The doctors inform her and Dr. Brenda that there's no part of Brian's body that isn't injured. She insists that he risked his life to save her and must be helped in any way possible. They decide to help him by installing advanced devices in his body to allow him to live and continue his life. We then see Solix, who lost his hand because of the bowling ball, replacing it with a metal one. After some time, Brian regains consciousness but is disoriented and confused. He struggles to stand and goes to a mirror. He looks at himself and is shocked to see strange things coming out of his fingers. He thinks it's a side effect of the treatment. Suddenly, a missile shoots out of his leg, causing chaos in the hospital. He panics and runs away, unable to control himself. He encounters Dr. Brenda, who begins to calm him down and remind him of the day of the accident, explaining that there was no hope for his survival. She explains that he's now part of a highly advanced network of tissues, devices, and computer programs, making him the first model of a robotic policeman. This will allow him to fulfill his dream of becoming a police officer. Meanwhile, Solix and his assistant are trying to activate the robotic leg using the helmet, but they fail. We return to Brenda, who is explaining to Brian about his nature and abilities as a robotic policeman. She advises him to carefully read the instruction manual to control his abilities. She presents him with a special uniform to wear and takes him to an open area to train him. However, he is nervous and unable to use his abilities because he hasn't read the manual properly. Later, she designs a high-tech car for him as a surprise gift. She explains its features, and he gets into the car, activates it, and it transforms into a robot. The car talks and moves quickly, but he struggles to control it. A robot controlling the car appears on the screen and punches him. Brian talks to the robot, saying they should work together to help people. Strangely, they find themselves stopping next to thieves trying to steal the car. Oddly, Brian doesn't realize they are thieves and helps them steal the car. It's clear that Brian's mind has been affected by the accident, and his intelligence has significantly decreased. After many attempts to regain control of himself, he arrests the thief. Later, we see Benny tying Brian's bow tie as he prepares to attend a Halloween party celebrating the success of the robotic policeman project. At the party, he meets Brenda and dances with her. While dancing, Solix approaches and tries to talk to Brenda, making Brian upset. He leaves and presses his ear against a statue on the wall to eavesdrop on them, but before he hears anything, his ear falls off. When he goes to Brenda, she tells him that Solix offered her a job with significant funding and her own private lab, making her very happy. Brian, however, feels uneasy and tries to warn her. A journalist journalist arrives and takes him to be photographed with his fellow officers. He asks his boss when he will be assigned challenging tasks. His boss tells him he needs to start with simple tasks first. Over time, Brian notices that all the tasks he's assigned are easy and unrelated to real police work. He realizes they think of him as a burden and decides to confront his boss, requesting to work on Artemis's case and Brenda's device. His boss tells him that important cases are for real police officers and informs him that he's a liability, kicking him out of his office. Meanwhile, Solix is working on creating a robot similar to Brian after stealing Brenda's files and research. He successfully activates it, but it turns out to be reckless and rogue. We see Brian, who ignores his boss's words and goes to the station. He takes the file on Brenda's father's case and finds metal pieces with letters engraved on them, trying to figure out their meaning. While he's examining the file, his rogue counterpart appears. He starts scaring people and children in the street, causing chaos. Later, he drives his car, and Benny notices a passing truck with the same letters engraved on the metal pieces. He realizes it's linked to Solix's company. He confirms that he is connected to the theft of the robot and the murder of Artemis. This puts Brenda in danger, and he quickly heads to the Solix building. At that time, she is in her office, watching the news on TV, which is broadcasting about Brian's duplicate, who is causing chaos and fires in the city. Of course, she thinks it's the real Brian and doesn't believe what she's seeing. We return to Brian, who removes the grappling hook from his head, uses it to climb the building, and reaches Brenda. He warns her about Solix and his plan, telling her she must leave the place immediately. He continues climbing to the rooftop, where he finds the robot and confirms that it is the thief and the killer. Brenda discovers that there's another version of her, a robot created by Solix, and she becomes anxious and wants to leave. At that moment, Brian tries to take the robot, but the alarm goes off. He falls and attempts to escape, but fails. We return to Brenda and her duplicate, who wants to leave with her and talk. The duplicate explains that she was locked in the lab and never allowed to leave. Brenda learns from her that Solix is the one who stole the robot from the lab, leaving her shocked as she realizes he is the killer. She runs away. At the same time, Solix captures Brian and shows him his duplicate, revealing how it is harming people in the streets and destroying the city. He tells Brian that everyone believes the duplicate is the real Brian, and reveals his plan to create more robotic duplicates to execute all his orders, enabling him to rule the world. Solix removes Brian's chip, breaks it, disables him, and orders his assistant to throw him in the scrap heap. Brenda goes to Brian's house but doesn't find him. She takes Benny in the car to search for him. Meanwhile, Brian's duplicate arrives at the police station, attacks the officers, accesses the files, and uses his hand to emit fire, setting everything ablaze. He leaves the station, and fires spread throughout the city, terrifying people. Fortunately, Benny and Brenda find Brian, but they discover him discarded in the scrap heap and disabled. They are deeply saddened, but Benny is surprised when Brian regains consciousness and speaks to them. Brenda realizes that Brian can function without the chip. They get into the car, and Brian uses his internal engine to drive the car at maximum speed. Benny reaches home while Brian and Brenda head to Solix. Brian tracks him down and finds him in his car with Brian's duplicate. Brian instructs Brenda to drive while he approaches Solix's car and enters it. He tells Solix he is under arrest for the murder of Brenda's father, Artemis. However, the duplicate attacks Brian and throws him out of the car. Brian uses his long legs to catch up with him. At this point, the duplicate confronts Brian, and they fight, both falling to the ground. Brenda continues to chase Solix until he reaches his company headquarters. However, he captures her and takes her to the rooftop. Meanwhile, Brian defeats his duplicate, throws its head into the water, activates his helicopter, and flies it. At the same time, Solix reaches the rooftop, ties Brenda up inside the aircraft, and begins to take off. He is surprised when Brian arrives and uses a device from his hand to disable the aircraft. Solix loses control, and Brian rescues Brenda using a parachute to bring her safely down. They land together in a fountain, and Brenda quickly checks on Brian. As for Solix, he descends with his parachute into Brian's car, where the robot attacks him and locks him in a cage. The police arrive, and Benny explains everything that happened. She informs them that Solix created a duplicate of her uncle and programmed it for destruction and chaos to control the city. Solix's assistant confirms Benny's story to the police chief and hands over the stolen robot. The police chief realizes Brian is innocent and salutes him. The press arrives, and Brian takes Brenda away to continue their lives together. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to our channel, activate the notification bell,